In this video with the AnKing, I'm going to talk about getting and then actually scheduling the interviews for your residency. If you need help with any of the processes you're getting ready for residency, feel free to go to this link or any of our social media channels. We have a whole team of people that would be more than happy to help you, and we really try and provide a lot of resources for this because we know we've been through it ourselves. I know that this is a difficult time, but hopefully this is very helpful. So I'm going to go over a couple methods that people used to invite me to for my interviews. And one of those is Eris. There's a scheduling within Eris. I'll show you that. Many of the times it was just an email. They would email me and say, hey, you're invited for an interview. Please send us back which time you would like, something along those lines. Although Eris and these other ones, you will actually get an email, but then you'll have to go to Eris to schedule it. There's something called Thalamus. It seems like internal medicine seems to like them a lot, but I had multiple people use Thalamus, and there's an app on your phone for that as well. There's Third Friday. There's Interview Broker. Sometimes for the prelims, it was actually scheduled with another interview. So for example, I interviewed in Michigan, and people and they scheduled it. They said, did you want to do the transitional year along with your dermatology year? I said, yes, that'd be great. So then I had to go and pay so that I actually applied to that transitional year. And then they just scheduled the two during the same day. And then there was one place I had to use Google Forms to pick my preferred date. So that's kind of how that works. Now, this is really important and not something that I thought about beforehand, but you have to be wicked fast when you are applying to these interviews, especially if you have a lot of them, or if you're like me where you have prelims and dermatology, and so it makes it hard and the dates might overlap. Now, I got to do things virtually, which made it easier, but when you actually have to fly to these places, which may be in the future, you have to schedule them quite well in order to actually make it to as many as possible because of all the travel time and stuff. So one thing I did is I created a new email on Gmail. I would recommend Gmail if possible, and I'll show you why in a second. Make a new email, and I just called mine, my name and the dermatology because that's what I was applying to. So just so that you have an email that's just dedicated to this, makes life easier. And then set up text forwarding. I'm going to show you that in a second. Text forwarding is really nice. It actually sends the text to your or an email. When you get an email, sends a text message to your phone so you know right away. It's not perfect. Didn't work all the time, but it did work sometimes. The reason is your phones often only sync that email every 15 or 20 minutes, so you might miss something. 15 or 20 minutes is a long time when you're scheduling interviews. I've had some that went within 5 minutes. So then Spark is an email app that I recommend, and this is a video I made. I'll put a description or a link in the description of this video for you if you want, so you can go and watch this. It's one of my favorite email apps, but you can actually set it up so that, for example, I want to send an email at 2 p.m. today, and I did that when people said, okay, you can start signing up by 10 a.m. I just had the email all typed up and ready to go, and I didn't even have to touch it. It automatically sent. And then, contacting your programs. This is important. If you're not getting interviews and you want to contact programs to get interviews, there are ways to do this. One important thing is know when the main season is. For example, dermatology had a couple programs that were here and there, but there were two main dates when all of the interviews were sent out. So to send an interview or an email to a program director before that happened would not go over very well. But after that had happened and you knew you didn't have an interview, then you could potentially reach out. Also, some things like I think family practice and pediatrics tend to interview early. Dermatology tends to interview late. Knowing when the season is for whatever specialty you're applying to is important so you can time your email right. Phone is better than email, and emailing the program director is better than program coordinator. But if you only have the program coordinator's email and you don't have any phone numbers or anything, that's okay too. I know it's not going to be the easiest thing, but whatever. I will show you an email I actually sent. And then get your help from mentors. Mentors, people you did research with, people that wrote your letters. They can make phone calls on your behalf to try and get you interviews at these places. Don't be bashful. If this is your future, if you really want to go somewhere, you need an interview somewhere, pull all the strings that you possibly can. There's nothing wrong with that. In the worst case scenario, you don't get an interview. So it's not like you really are going to hurt yourself by doing this. In fact, people will see that you have interest and it probably will help you. And then prelim programs, if you're like me and you're doing dermatology where you have to do a prelim year separately, a lot of times I would email places and say, hey, I got a dermatology interview here. I would also like to interview for the prelim so I can stay in one location for the whole time if that's okay. And almost every time I did that, it worked. So those are kind of those. I'm actually going to take you to these sites and show you kind of what it's like in real life. So let's go do that. All right, this is Eris. Here you are. It's one of those things you've looked forward to and now you're scared for. This is what it looks like when you get interviews. There's a calendar view if you want to see everything you have scheduled. But here's your invitations when you get them. You come on here and it has the program. You can decline it if you want. And then you can view the interview dates, which right now there's just one. If we go down here, you can see there's no action available because we're later in the season. But if there were, there would be a button here that would say to schedule, or if it was full, then you could waitlist. But you can't like schedule here and then waitlist here. You just schedule or waitlist. So that's why you have to be really quick, because these will go quickly. You got to get on quickly, choose the date you want, and then click on that. So, and I can show you like kind of towards the end of this video what I did to stay organized as I was doing this. But basically I used a Google Calendar and an Excel spreadsheet to stay really organized. Here's what Thalamus looks like. So there's multiple programs that I got interviews at here. And it actually isn't showing it now. I think it's because the season's over. But there were multiple listed, and you could go click on them wherever you wanted to. And then when you clicked on it, it would pull up information about it, and then you could schedule it, or if you already had scheduled, you could move it around or whatever. But that's kind of how Thalamus works. And sometimes Thalamus, like, it will have the program listed, but it won't let you schedule yet. It usually will send you an email right when you're allowed to schedule it. And my programs at least told me when that was going to be. Here's what Third Friday looks. There were a couple places here. I can only cancel, but there would have been a calendar right here if I wanted to reschedule it. Similar to Interview Broker, where you have this. So in my email, I made a different folder for each interview place where I was getting things, and just put all the emails in one folder. So I always had the link to these websites. And then this is the text forwarding I was talking about. So this is, you just go to like your settings here and then go to all settings, and then you're going to go to the forwarding and pop IMAP. You can also just Google this, but you're going to add a forwarding address. And I'm on Verizon, so here's Verizon. I just Googled Verizon forward email to text, depending on whatever you're on. You need to know what this is. So it's at vtext.com. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. So I'm going to come here. You're at a forwarding address. So 12470 at vtext.com. You would add a text message. Then you'll come here and you'll say, yes, proceed. And then, it's not an email address. Well, anyway, so it would come up here, and you would get a text message with a code, and you'd have to confirm the code, and then it would pop up right here. And then basically anytime you got an email, it would send you a text message, which is kind of nice. It gets a little annoying, but that's why I recommend setting up a new email within Gmail, because then you're not getting all of your emails to your text message. You're just getting important ones. That way, if your phone buzzes with a text message, you know it's important. And I actually wore an Apple Watch around the hospital, but the residents, like, no, they understand that this is a race. So just keep that in mind. Now, when you're actually like trying to keep track of things, this is the dermatology spreadsheet, and you can see this is like their their interview invite page. So I could kind of watch this and see like, oh, on October 28th, they sent out these emails, and on this day, so we had coordinated releases on the 8th and the 29th, but you could kind of see when programs were sending out invites. And then on the 8th, people could kind of keep track, like, oh, it went out at 12, it went out at 10:37. So then you kind of like knew if you didn't get an interview. Sometimes they did come later, but this kind of helped guide me as to when I could send emails to program directors after the fact. Here's vascular surgery. So this is, if you're in vascular surgery or not dermatology or whatever, this is how I would Google it. Vascular surgery Reddit spreadsheet. And then just like pop up. You'll find it, I promise. I can post this one in the description of this video. This has a lot of the spreadsheets that are, and this one's crazy. You like can't even log on to it because there's so many people. Depending on what you're going into, so you can kind of like watch what's going on. A lot of helpful resources here. I'll put this video linked in the description as well. This is the productivity apps that I was talking about, and then here's the Spark email app I was talking about, which unfortunately doesn't work on Windows yet, but it does work on phones, Apple and Android. And this is why, is because you can send later. So I had places where I could send an email at midnight, but I wanted to go to sleep, so I would just schedule it to send the email at midnight for me, and then I knew it was going to send right away. And that's kind of why I did that. So anyway, let me switch screens here real quick, and I'll show you how I at least kept track of all of the dates of everything. Okay, this was a sheet sent out by DIGA, which is a student-run like dermatology interest group thing nationally. They had information on not all of the programs, but a lot of them, and when they had announced that their interview dates were going to be, and just all sorts of details. You may have to make one of these yourself. It is a lot of work. But thankfully, they had kind of put, not all of them, but some of them in like this, so you could see which schools were doing which dates. And then as I got interviews, I would put them, I copied this and made my own. I like highlighted places that I was really interested in and things, and then updated the sheets myself, and then made it so that, let's see, we go to November. These are the ones like where I actually interviewed. And these are places where interviews had passed, so I knew that I wasn't going to get it, but it was a place I was interested in. And then in January, you can see like this was a place I was interested in. These were places I was interested in. That way, like when I got an interview and I knew I had 3 separate dates, I could pull this up and easily see like, oh, I can't do this day. I can't do this day. I could do this day. And let's say it was like there was an option to do this day or this day. I cared more about this day because I was hoping for this interview and kind of targeted them with personal statements and stuff. So I probably would have selected this one. So I just kept trying. I mean, you have like 5 minutes to decide. So the more organized you are before all of this mass chaos happens, the better. And I know it takes a lot of time, but it made it so that I didn't have to cancel any interviews at all because I couldn't schedule things. And now, obviously, you can see from the schedule, there's no way I could have ever done this in real life. Do 2 interviews in one day. But it's just just so you get a feel for what I was doing that I felt like actually worked. Last but not least, for this part of the video, this is an email that I actually sent. I took the names out, but this was to the program director and committee. I couldn't find the program director's email, so I sent it to the program coordinator and just addressed it to her, to the program director. And then I talked about why I wanted to go there. Notice how brief it is. That's really important. They are not going to read a long email. Keep it very brief, very to the point. So here's why I like the area. Here's why I like the program. Please consider me. Very simple, straightforward. I think that's really the best thing you can do. Like I said, if you can make a phone call, it's going to be better. But for me, this was a prelim, so it was less important than dermatology. I sent a quick email. I did actually end up getting an interview the next day because of this. I also had friends that knew people at certain areas, and they called in a favor, and I got interviews there. So, like I said, pull all the strings you possibly can to get those interviews. Talk with your mentors, get phone calls made, send emails. The more work you do, the more interviews you're going to get.
Thanks for learning with the AnKing. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, as well as follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Patreon. That is at AnKingMed. Also, feel free to reach out via email or check out our website, ankingmed.com, for more tips and tricks.